The average revenue per user in the United States is $50. US companies are losing money, Indian companies are making money. Where is it coming from? It's a question of pricing the service, creating the service in an affordable way. Think about, just like United States, your all incoming calls are going to be charged 8 times. Then what will happen to industry? It has nothing to do with
But I also foresee that the profit margin in offering that premium segment would always remain high. Let's take the example of institution only, educational institutions. A small institution like YAMU, they would not be taking that kind of profit.
That's true.
But ISB, even if you calculate the fee structure and all, they are making about 100 CR.
See, I think, one size doesn't fit all. I think that's all the point I'm trying to say. And I'm not saying, this market doesn't exist. But if you take, 3 million or 2 million SMEs, how many of them can create a product that can compete with that? Okay. So there may be 1 or 2 people. But if you really look at the employment generation that is required, and or prosperity that you can create and share, not everybody can come to Harvard, not everybody can go to ISB, even if they can afford. Affordability is one issue. So, but there are other secondary, there is a demand. Why do we have today? I don't know about Punjab and Andhra, there are 500 engineering colleges.
Yeah.
And of course, the quality and all that is questionable. That's a different thing.
So where do you see the services vis-a-vis manufacturing sector? So is manufacturing going to take a back seat, or just like
I think it is that my view is earlier it is the manufacturing per se is a standalone thing. You make something, you ship something. Today that is an integral part of some value creation. Maybe still, for example, auto components that maybe still you make and ship. But there, if you take, IT in manufacturing, tell me how do you segregate the IT component within a manufacturing setup? You cannot. There's a services included in the manufacturing to be able to provide, whatever they are providing. So you
mean to say like it'll all be integrated in the future?
If not integrated, that's mutually dependent.
Hi, I'm Mr. Agarwal from Dalem Solutions. The example that you gave for Google, 28 example.
Check now.
The example for Google, 20% of the time is for the activities the employees would usually like to do rather than How do you see that concept in terms of Indian application? Let me give you an example of my company. We have a small company which provides finance and accounting services to European clients. So if we were to implement such an initiative wherein 20% of my strength could dedicate the time to things they like, they might be people who look at the reports that we offer to clients in a new manner. But how do you think? Is it practical?
No, first of all, it is practical provided you define the boundaries. Before you say that you spend 20%, 10% of the time, I think one of the things you need to do is, whichever customers you have or segments you have, go and find out or have these people to go and talk to them and understand what additional things they can do. Because there's no point in doing, let's say, if your company is providing accounting services, there's no point in somebody coming up, I want to create a new email system. And I'm passionate about it. And if you were to allow him or her to do that, they end up doing neither. They're not going to add value there, they are also not doing your job. So the first thing you got to do is try to define the boundaries within which they need to operate. While I've oversimplified, Google giving 20% time, but they have well-defined boundary conditions which technologies to use. For example, if Google were to, if somebody were to sit there and develop a product on, let's say, Windows 7, they would not allow that. So there are boundaries defined. So what you need to do is understand what are the expansion you want to do. Maybe allow them to go and spend time with your customers to understand what is needed. Come back and say, look, can I do some product innovation or an extension to what I'm doing? Within that, then you can decide to give the how do you go about.
Thank you.
We talk about small companies these days who have, if not better products, but products which can match the quality which bigger companies are offering. Looking at the other end, how do you see the Indian consumers, looking towards these small companies? Because in India, probably, especially in Punjab, big is always good. Small companies are not associated with being successful or boutique practices. How do you see the Indian consumers looking at these small companies, even if they have better products or similar products?
Yeah, I think today, at least part of the Indian psyche is, as you rightly pointed out, bigger is the better. So let me go with a big company. Earlier they used to be saying nobody got fired for buying IBM. In the 70s and 80s they used to be saying, if you want an IT computer product, just go and buy IBM, but nobody can point fault with you because you say they are the biggest company and greatest company. That's all. So now that psychology is there. I think at the end of the day, what you really need to do is focus on what value you are giving, and also creating a value chain. And I'll give you one example. Similar examples may be there even within Punjab. Take motors manufacturing from Coimbatore. Coimbatore supplies close to 50 to 60% of the small motors, 1 HP, half HP motors coming in the country. Historically, they were not able to export. They were not able to export because two guys, two shops next to each other supplying a half an HP motor, and their variance of the weight, physical weight, was almost about 25%. Its functions, prices say maybe somewhat similar, but the weight they remain. So what happened was they joined hands together, and it's actually TCS that did it. TCS, what they did is they put a CAD/CAM machine with a translation of 2D to 3D, 3D to 2D. So because the individual companies could not afford CAD/CAM machines and all that. So they went to this TCS thing, and they used to give their 2D drawings and some CAD/CAM tools were utilized, so optimize the dimensions, the weight, and all that. Now they are able to, as a group, they are able to export their products. So coming back to this, how do you create, the small companies making a major impact? Nobody looked at them until recently. Now people are looking at it because there is a standardization, there is a variance to be expected, because otherwise 4 motors coming out of the same company, the weight difference is maybe at least 10-15%. So I think that's the approach.
Yeah. One more thing. Once you were talking about the incubation center at IIT, and you mentioned that the access to capital is not on the top of the priority list. Rather, you would like the startups to prove their concept before the money is given to them. Now, this is a very similar situation that one of our clients is facing. Given that we have a finance function, we have been almost, our efforts have been in vain. Almost $2 million have been invested in this service company. We realize that there is a cash burn. The core management, we have tried to push them not to further fund it till the actually ecosystem starts working within the organization, the managers start taking the charge and the responsibilities. And we have gone to the extent even of blocking the payroll till the concerned receivables manager got the money from the clients. But more or less that has, you cannot make these things happen on an ongoing basis. Yeah. So can you share some thoughts how can we manage this in a service organization wherein you have a definite payroll cost, say another 50 lakhs a month, and revenues are dwindling and people aren't taking charge except VCs funding the project?
Yeah, I think there are two things. First of all, if you are starting a company, the most important thing that at least we try to do is Does the individual, does the entrepreneur really know where he or she is headed? What are the things that are needed to make a business successful? At what point in time do we want to know? I'll give one example without naming the company. One of the incubating companies within our center. He joined the program about a year and a half ago. Within 2 months, he came back with a plan saying, I need this much, I need this software engineer, this engineer, that engineer, this method, this. The estimates of the resources. Therefore, I need that. And then he also basically said, there is someone who is willing to invest. Okay. And basic questions that we made him to think through is, okay, you take that investment. What is the percentage? First of all, do you know really that you need those 3 people? Or do you need a different set of 3 people with a different set of skills than the 3 people that you are planning to do? In other words, you really get into the, make him think, walk him through the actual development, what he is doing, what the value, and who is the customer. And if he produces a product, does he have a second customer potentially? At least can he think about second customer? At what point in time does he need how much money? And his first reaction is, no, I don't want to worry about money later, so I want to keep the money in the bank. And then that way I can concentrate on my product development. Finally it turned out, I basically said, okay, you go ahead, we will not, I'm not endorsing you to go ahead. So finally he came back, that individual, he was giving, about 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs of capital, or infusing capital. And he wanted 30-40% of the company. I said, okay, you get 30-40%, let's assume you are willing to do that. And then what happens after 3 months, you cannot really finish the product. At least I could wear my technology hat and say, what are the things involved in getting the product out. So you need another 30-40 lakhs before you get the first customer. And you already gave this, 30-40%. What else is there left for you to give it to the next guy? And what is left for you? So interestingly, the same company today, same individual, recently is negotiating with someone at a 10 crore valuation within 1 year. Okay. That is because I said, look, you hire somebody who is, you give, sort of maybe some equity, some shares, whatever it is. Or hire first to get the prototype, hire some interns from a technology institution, students. Because you don't need, high-priced, software engineers to do that. This is the kind of thing. There's no prescription for this.
Probably the idea is that rather than hiring fancy resources, you see what best you can do with the existing setup.
That's very important. And also go for capital as and when it's absolutely needed. But the idea, the sooner, if you go early enough or earlier than when it's required, then there's a price for that.
The irony is when you want it, you won't get it.
No, but that's the point, And then in this particular case, what he's doing, now he's talking about a much more expanded thing. He needs a lot more capital than what he's willing to give. But then there's a negotiated thing. First, 1 crore comes at this level. The second crore, when he gives the second crore, in principle he has agreed within certain valuation range. So you need to develop those strategies.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of manufacturing SMEs, particularly for the last 20 years. It's very difficult to change their mindset despite the challenges which they are facing. How do you overcome that?
I think there are 3 or 4 categories, and I run into them very often. There are 3 or 4 categories. One category of people, they are happy with what they have. In fact, let me show my last slide that explains. If you always do what you have always done, you will always get what you have got. And in fact, this is Tom Peters said, but now in future, even this is not guaranteed. So that's the message I give. Please don't do this. Now let's talk about where do you want to go a year from now. and what are the things that are needed. And the moment you give them a path within a year, if they don't change certain things, and then things are going to be different. Many times they don't understand. I have been this way 10 years. I was growing at 15%. My profits, I'm always profitable, so there is nothing that is. What they have not realized is the world has changed. That was true 10 years ago, and I would have said, look, they will continue to be there for 10 years. Not anymore. So I think the other example I will give you is, we have as part of my center what I call growth initiative. And hopefully, we'll start something similar here once our students start coming in. What that is we select companies who are facing, they are not startups. They are, my range is 5 crores to 15 crores. At least they have been in the business for no less than 5 years. So that they have a reasonable level of stability. Now they have to go take the growth path. So it's called growth initiative. And we sit down with them and identify what are the specific issues that they're facing. Is it a marketing problem? Is it a technology problem? Is it human resources? Is it some tools like supply chain, ERPs and so on and so forth. And the students work on that problem for that company for about 10 weeks or so, and come up with a practical solution of what needs to be done. It's like a consulting project. But for that, what students get is a learning on the ground realities of what it takes to run a company when you are stacked with resources, focusing on Asia. What the company gets is some insights. The interesting thing is, last batch, 2 of those small companies, they said, look, the CEO said, now I know, I better get out of it. I'm going to sit aside, and they hired the ISB graduates as the CEOs. So there's no prescription, but basically that's what.
I think last 2 questions.
So, I'm from an organization called ISEC. I don't know what, but it's a joke in the professional community that ISEC is the world's best kept secret. And we have done everything humanly possible to promote our organization. Advertisements, all over the internet. We hold like monthly sessions with a lot of colleges, schools, educational institutions. But somehow, people do not know that we exist, which is a little funny. Why? Because when our targets are being met, and we are actually, in a very well, systematic manner, we have certain targets, certain annual targets, and we are achieving those, and we are out-shooting those targets. We have certain realization projections, we are meeting those. Everything is in order. All the goals are being met. We are basically equal exchange. We deliver exchange opportunities to various people in various sectors. And we have expected realization projections of over 600 annually. And Chandigarh is actually the best, most performing local chapter internationally. Everything's being done. People are coming for exchanges. They know that they are affiliated with ISEC. Yet, especially in India, people do not know that it exists.
A lot of people don't.
Exactly what are we doing wrong?
I can't say that somebody are doing something wrong. I'll tell you, in fact, one of the active members of ISEC is part of my program, Rishabh Chopra. From time to time I talk with him on this subject. I think it's a matter of position. See, right now, what is happening there is the members that come through ISEC are actually very diverse group, very capable. But they are being positioned like a homogeneous group. So that's one issue. If I, in fact, this year probably I may take about 5 to 10 ISEC people myself in the center, and I wanted somebody in my team to explore that possibility. is, if we tell them these are the problems that I would like to, address during that internship or whatever the exchange program you have. And then you match, the ISEC organizations should facilitate matching with the right skills as opposed to giving me, 600 people of various skills. And if you do things like that, and there's no reason why ISEC will not be known. And more importantly, I also know one or two ISEC people, they ended up spending time in Hyderabad, but not, at the end of the program, if you ask them, what did you get? Not much, I visited Charminar, I visited this, I visited that. So you need to also ask the question, how can you make the program more effective for the volunteers or for the participants coming from that side?
And also how we deliver to our customers better.
It has to be a more focused approach. Now that you have a size, it is very easy, or relatively easy, I should say, to talk about more focused approaches, segmented approach.
May I have the last question?
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Tariku, what is your philosophy of leadership? You're such an achiever. So what has been your philosophy of leadership?
I think, I don't know, I can't say one particular philosophy. I think respect that statistically, every and any individual anywhere in the globe is equally